Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today I am delighted to welcome the directors and producer behind Carpet Cowboys, which is a documentary film that embeds viewers into the world of the carpet capital of the world, Dalton, Georgia. It's debuting at the inaugural edition of Baltimore's New Next Film Festival. Please welcome Emily Mackenzie, Noah Collier, and Riel Roch-Decter. So thank you all for coming on to the podcast. You see how I went professional? I sound like I just activated right there. I've done this before. So to kick things off, I want to again welcome you to the Truth in This Art podcast. And I'd like to start by asking each of you about your sort of connection to the project. What was the idea going into Carpet Cowboys, and maybe any unique stories that kind of led up to it? Just more of an introductory sort of entree into this discussion.
Okay, I'll do the origin story.
Please.
So Noah and I have worked together for many years now. We've done a lot of documentary work together where we travel and end up staying in hotels. And so over the years, you end up in these small places where everything shuts down at night and there's nothing to do but sit in the hotel lobby and chew the fat, get to know each other, chat about whatever comes to mind. And so over the course of these trips, at some point, we began speculating about hotel decor, specifically hotel carpets, and kind of just getting more and more silly and ridiculous with each other, saying, you know, what kind of person invents these? What kind of place do these come from? How are these possibly designed? Like, what kind of an interesting brain would generate these types of patterns and designs? And then sometimes sort of making up characters and saying, well, I bet he's like this, I bet he's like that. Oh, ha, ha. And it was just a lovely, amusing way to pass the time. And then I moved to New Orleans and we stopped doing as much travel together. And Noah called me not long after I had left and said, Emily, I found it. There is one town in the entire United States that makes all of the carpets for North America and exports like half of the world's carpets. This is the place where the hotel carpets come from. We have to go. And that's what brought us to Dalton in the first place.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, and please, if there are any other like details before we move into the next one, but I definitely want to comment on it. That is the type of story that has sold a ticket. It's brought on Rob Lee in. It's like, oh, that's unique. That's odd. That's interesting. Tell me more. It's like having factoids to say to make myself seem more interesting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So were there any sort of like unexpected moments during the time of like, okay, we're going to definitely work on this. This is the direction we're going to go, you know, something around that sort of area. Was there anything that really kind of like stuck out from maybe previous productions, previous experiences that were like, this is going to be very different?
Yeah, I think like in staring at the carpet designs for years leading up to this project, I had a feeling that it was going to be a strange situation. I think I had a vision of a kind of like walking into more of an opium den of designers. You know, I think I thought it was going to be like just like how psychedelic these designs were really led me in a different direction. And what I didn't anticipate was cowboys. And so I think that was surprising. I think like when we eventually got to Dalton and the originators of these carpets were like a variety of men wearing chaps and cowboy hats, like that was surprising to me, in fact. Yeah, from the start, I think there were a lot of turns in this. And then without giving too much away, like I think the film took us in a lot of directions that I like had no anticipation of.
I think to kind of what Noah said, I mean, the whole journey has been very surprising. And I came on a little later, and maybe this is a question you're going to ask anyways, but I was introduced to Noah and Emily through a mutual friend named Alan Resnick, who is actually from Baltimore, or spent a lot of time in Baltimore in the kind of alt comedy music art scene. And, he's a kind of narrative, he's a comedian. He, writes a lot of short films and kind of plays with, I don't know, like uncomfortable comedy. I would say, or he's probably a better way of describing it. But he's the one who reached out to me and said he had a friend who has been shooting this film, and he sent me kind of a little sample. And I think the biggest surprise for me is that, when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is fun casting, this is good. Who wrote this? This is good writing. Like, this is hilarious. This character is really rich. And then, I responded. I'm like, yeah, who's the team? Like, who's the writer? Who's this actor? Where do they shoot this? And he's like, no, this is a documentary. Like, this is real. This is a real person. And then I think instantly I was like, okay, I'm in. So I think that was the biggest first surprise for me.
That's great. I mean, I was almost going to finish what you were saying. That's like, yeah, man, that's great. So, and this is for all of you. With the film set to premiere, with Carpet Cowboys set to premiere, could you provide sort of like a sneak peek into the exploration around Dalton? It's the carpet capital of the world, and how like the film delves into certain themes. I see American identity, creativity, economic evolution. Unweave that tangled group of themes there, please.
Very nice. Very nice. We love a pun. We love a pun here.
I try.
I would say the film weaves together a bunch of interesting personalities, people in Dalton who have different access points into the carpet industry, which is the huge industry in that town and that sort of section of North Georgia. We deal with wholesalers, stress testers whose job is to light carpets on fire, rip them apart, designers, kind of a bunch of different people along the sort of food chain of making of a carpet. And it ends up following one individual person and kind of his pursuit of his great American dream vis-a-vis being a designer and where that ultimately takes him. And I don't know how much we should give away, but it takes him to very unexpected places.
I like that. As I think about it, and like, I wish there was a time machine. I wish there was some type of portal. It's like, look, I need to be involved, because at a point there was a project that I worked on here where, and this kind of aligns with this sort of next sub question, if you will, where I was able to kind of hang out with a knife maker and go through the whole process of making a knife. And again, going with this whole idea of having things interesting to say in parties and at coffee shops, I learned a lot about beveling knives, sharpening knives, and all of that. So, during the process of, this film, was there anything like really like, okay, this is an interesting detail about carpets or about this industry that you could share in the context of this podcast? Because we see them everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's like in a broader sense, every step of the way, every person's job. It was like, of course, this is somebody's job, but my goodness, I never would have thought of that. Like, of course, there's this 3-story elaborate machine that is a trough of melted plastic that dribbles it down to create yarn that's then sewn into carpets. Just these things you would never think of. Like, of course, it's somebody's job to pick up dog poop from the veterinarian's office to smear on a carpet. That has to happen. But you never would think about it. And so pulling all these little strands and kind of seeing what happens, it's like the specificities of the like minutia of people's jobs inside of the industry to no end has delighted me. And I want to mention the people that walk around, but I feel like, can we mention that? So can I? I'm going to do it. So there's a whole job. There's an entire job in the carpet industry called walking. It's just walkers. And their job is to walk on small carpet samples that are laid out in a big ring for hours every day. They have to walk over it a certain amount of passes, and it takes them weeks. I think it's 2 to 3 weeks for 8 hours a day just walking. And then they vacuum it, and they're testing the way that the carpet springs back. They're testing the way that it mats down. They're testing how it wears out, so then they can give it a certain rating. But literally, it's the back of a lab building. It's like a small warehouse space, and it's 2 guys just walking in a circle. It's just, yeah, I love it so
like
much.
A series of employees, and then the wife of the lab technician uses it as like a workout. She has a little Fitbit on.
Just it pops up like carpet exercise as one of the workouts.
Yeah. It could be a craze. We don't know what's coming.
The big thing I want to say I learned from the two of you, though, which I actually can't articulate right now, so maybe I didn't fully learn it, is just this idea of tufted.
Uh-huh.
Like the difference between like, I kind of free flow, like, oh, we get some rugs and carpet. It's like the difference is tufted, and that's what this town specializes in.
Right.
But like,
Right.
I still can't articulate what that is, even though I know there's a difference.
If you go face down into a carpet and look very closely, it's little loops, like it's a hoop. It's not sticky like this, it's hoops. And so the way it is that's what a tuft is. And then they put it through a steam machine and it squeezes it all together. That's it.
Right.
It's the same, it's chenille is the same thing. It's just tiny chenille.
But Dalton is the town that like perfected this or invented this or just cornered the market on it, so to speak.
And the person who invented this hooping technique in Dalton had the last name Looper, which is incredible.
It's funny because in doing close to 700 episodes of this podcast, I did interview relatively recently a person who does tuft carpets. So that is one interview that I've done relatively recently. And he it's all pop culture oriented. And he's like, it's a lot of shave. And he's like, I'm like a barber as well, but for carpets. I'm like, wow, this is a lot.
Yeah, they shave them. A lot of the carpets that have texture, those are people that are going in with razors. It's a very interesting process.
Absolutely. So talk about like sort of your distinct roles in Carpet Cowboys and how like maybe they compare to like maybe the project before, a project that you've worked on since. Like I see, Noah and Emily are both the directors and specialize in the cinematography side of things, and Riel, you're the producer. So talk a bit about sort of like this production and this process compared to maybe previous ones or more recent ones.
Yeah. I mean, I've primarily worked as a cinematographer on documentaries for a bunch of years. And so I've never been able to like follow a project all the way through. Like, I think I'm often like involved at the level of the director, but for like a very small part of it, like during shooting. And so like, it was very new for me to follow the project all the way through. And Emily has experience directing from before this. And so it was super helpful for me to work with her. As she had like an idea of the way things work in that way. And Riel has like an enormous amount of experience. So I think for me, like there's parts of this in which I felt like very experienced and parts of it in which I felt like very new. And it was just it was like a learning process for me.
Yeah, for me, I usually work as like a field director. And so you go and you're working on somebody else's thing. So there's a person to report back to, and something that was so fun. It's more like the shorts that I've directed that are my own, of course, but this is my first feature. And what was so fun for me with this and such like a creative challenge was it was just Noah and I deciding what we were doing. And it was just the two of us in the field for pretty much the entire thing. So we're both directing, Noah's shooting, I was running audio, and then, coordinating our next person to film with and finding lunch. So just the two of us tag teaming, but it allowed this nimbleness and we could kind of get into any scenario and work really quickly and in bed with whomever. And it gave us a lot of access. And I think people also found us really unintimidating. It didn't feel like, whoa, it's a big production team. It's just the two of us. We're pretty gentle temperaments. And so they said, sure, come on in. And it really allowed guards to go down and comfort. And it was very fun to work intuitively. Like it was super rich to just kind of talk amongst ourselves and decide what we wanted to do. And for me, that was a departure from the kind of work I'm used to doing, which is much more structured. This is for the format of a specific project. And with this, we got to just find our path and find our way and tell the story that we felt was most interesting.
That's great.
Yeah. And, I think for us, like as a production company, like Memory has often found itself in the position where we meet filmmakers who have maybe started on a project or started to develop an idea or started shooting. I mean, especially in documentary, and then getting to a certain place and needing kind of just extra help. Like, well, okay, we've got the idea, we've found the subjects, we've shot a little bit, or we shot a lot. Like, what do we do next? And so it's fairly common for us. But I think what was unique in this situation was, working with a duo. I never had the experience of working with a directing duo. And, a very, like Emily said, like a very nimble kind of team. Like we would kind of talk about doing shoots and then they'd just go do them. And like there wasn't a lot of hand holding required in that department. and it was a very like creatively fulfilling like collaboration. And at Memory, I've often co-produced with my co-founder Sebastian Pardo, and this was the first project that I was sort of producing with someone else, which with Emily, and Emily was also a director, so it was really kind of a nice trio. I felt for the three of us to move through the production to editorial, like finding the right editor, and going through the long process, which is editing a documentary, and like finding, taking all this footage, all these rich ideas and people, and turning them into like a 90-minute film that can be enjoyed in a theater. It's not an easy task, and it never gets easier, no matter how many times you do it. So yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it was a lot very familiar, but it was just a little different of a setup, but one that like was really kind of creatively fulfilling. So yeah.
Thank you. And I have a bit of a follow-up question in terms of like Memory. So in speaking a bit on like Memory and its mission, like how, like where, like what is the sort of like mission, or sort of the like those three words that really describe what Memory does? I see innovation there. I see really like just films that kind of like move the needle in a different direction and expand how filmmaking and storytelling works. But share a bit about Memory with us.
Yeah, I mean, we started the company almost 10 years ago, me and my co-founder, and initially produced everything together. And I think we just kind of gravitated towards the things that were interesting to us. And I think it was only after a few years of really looking at what we had engaged in that we really realized that there was a methodology, I guess, or like a mission statement to be had, which was really, and I think this film falls perfectly into that, which is, working with filmmakers who are committed to doing the work that they want to do. They're not being hung up by, oh, I need millions of dollars before I can, work one day on this thing. Like, just like, we need to do it. It's like, it was just like driving both Emily and Noah to like, go get this thing done, like go pursue it.
Yeah.
And in those situations, we act as like, we can, we help, but we like are there to kind of elevate what they're already doing. So like just help move it through all the different stages and get it out in the world. And from like a content or like the kinds of films, like outside of the filmmakers themselves, like all the films are artist driven. And they're films that could only be made by the artists themselves. Like, I don't think anyone could have pulled off what they had done in terms of like the level of cinematography or the access they got, like just their demeanor and the way they move through the world, like resulted in this film. And then, in terms of like what the film is actually about, like, I mean, I think about this often. There's not a lot, the landscape of comedic leaning documentaries in America is, it's a desert. Like there's really not that many. There's not that many comps for this film that have been made in the last 10, 15 years, So in a way it's like kind of a throwback, but it's actually using that to talk about like now. And for me personally, and I think this runs across most of our films, is we never want to be didactic. We never want to be beating someone over the head with a message. We want people to take away from something we present with their own thoughts and ideas, and hopefully it challenges the way they see the world. And I think you can do that in comedy, you can do that in drama and horror, you can do it in so many different genres. So we're not agnostic to like one genre. We like the pushing boundaries in different genres. So a comedic doc that actually has you question a bit of the way that America organizes itself, or the way that it treats people, or the way that manufacturing the consequences of manufacturing and capitalism in America without saying any of those things. Fantastic. Like all day, I'll watch that. And I think really that the testament for this film is that, Emily and Noah screened the film for everyone that was in it or that is in it in Dalton recently. And they see an accurate representation of themselves. Now, maybe you play that film somewhere else and they see something different, but pull something different out of it. But, you want to be able to, I want the film to play everywhere it can and not be specific to a certain audience per se. That anyone can engage in it, even though all the different people who engage in it might come away with different opinions or ideas.
Thank you. That's great. And it's, I think with a lot of different storytelling and getting more and more into documentary or what have you, I look for sort of that commonality. And I think a lot of folks do when they're watching it, like, does this relate? Is this a city or these people that I relate to? And I find that the ones that stick with me are like really broad sort of stories. And they kind of have they're broad sort of storytelling with the nicheness that's there. And that's what I'm hearing. And it's like, oh, yeah. So that works. And as a person that's interested in, doing this in that way and having something that's, I think, very niche about this sort of community and broadening it, I think that relatability is there, as we talked before we got started about the similarity to New Orleans or the similarity to maybe the people in Philadelphia or what have you, just different cities. Those stories are going to connect and relate. How do you niche it down? So yeah, that's great. So I got like two more real questions, and I do have those rapid fire questions. We got to get the rapid fire questions in. I want to hear a little bit about, because there's sort of a limit. I don't want to, try to, twist your arm into sharing all of the goodies about the movie, but the process of like production, like what was the length, that was there? Because a lot of folks, they have a sense of, okay, they shot it, the movie's out now, we're done. Everything is ready to go. What was sort of the length of filming it, scheduling it? What was sort of the length from, first day of shooting, conception to like now?
We started in December 2017.
Wow.
So however many years of life that is.
Should we do a moment of silence?
Let us all honor our 6 years. Yeah, it's been a very long road.
2016.
Wow.
You said 2017. And I think we met in 2018, 19?
Yeah, I think so. I think we had maybe only done one or two shoots once you came on.
Yeah, I think it was early 2018, like a little over a year later, maybe longer than that.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, it, in a way, the last shoot, I think, maybe you were going to say this, but the last shoot was like in February of 2020.
The last major shoot. Then we went back and did. Yeah, primary.
The last major shoot was, but it kind of dictated the story in a way. I think we had aspirations and potentially could have kept shooting for a lot longer. But a global pandemic sort of made us refocus what the film was able to do, which, I think is better for it. But So 3 years of shooting.
Yeah, I think it also changed the story. I mean, I think like what was happening in real life really was affected by the pandemic. And I think we thought we were going to like entirely other countries, and like those things just never happened. I mean, this is a documentary. Right. Our subjects just never went to those places, and those things never happened. And so it was like, how do you craft a story with like what has happened? And we kind of realized that there was this kind of wild arc that had already occurred. And it's sort of, I think you have a tendency in documentary to like kind of fear not having enough and overshoot. And I think people come away with like 600-700 hours of footage. And it's like, did we gain anything by this? And I think like in kind of being lean, it was like easier to look into the minutia of things. I think we like really were able to like find these little moments that you might have overlooked if you had, 5-6 years of footage and you felt the need to kind of like tell that big of a story. Mm-hmm. And so in many ways, I think it like shaped what the film became. Like, I think being able to like look at these small moments and like kind of like focus in was really helpful for us.
I agree. I think that's like one of the things, like the practice of making any art is having limitations sort of forces you to be more creative. And documentary is interesting because it's like it's real people with real narratives and stories. So you chase those through lines, but if it gets truncated sort of abruptly, then you have to go back in and kind of get more internal, both with your subjects, with your material, with yourself and your thinking. And that was an interesting process for us. Like I remember at one point we were like, is this just going to be a short? And all of us kind of said no, or at least Noah and I said no. And we went determined to find these other ways of really fleshing it out, because there was so much there, but it required kind of going, yeah, a little less narrative driven, or having the narrative abstract itself a bit. So it's actually pretty simple, but then so much can hang inside of it.
And I think that's one of the testaments around like being able to work in a sort of skinny, agile, or nimble manner. Recently I was able to, because it's pretty much a one-person show here. So, I know how to do most of the elements and all of the elements and what I'm doing here. And at one point, like last month, I did a podcast on a boat. Like it was a small little tiny boat with like 3 people on it. And I was like, we're going to sink. This is going to be old. Local podcaster seen here holding mic, drowning, or what have you. But it enabled me to sort of push the boundaries and get that extra level of like confidence of, air balloon next time. Let's make it happen. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
You're just out here courting nausea.
I love the living metaphor. Like it's not a metaphor at all. Like you sink or you swim in this boat.
That's good. That's good. I like it. So let's see. I got one more real question that is sort of the the summary, the buttoning up, if you will. So looking ahead to the premiere, new next film festival. What are sort of the expectations are weird, but what are your thoughts going into it? What are the feelings going into it? Potential conversations that you think could come out of the film debuting and premiering there. What are your thoughts around like what's coming this weekend?
I honestly immediately look at both of you because I'm like, Riel, what happened?
No, go ahead.
No, I think I am about to pass it to you because I think for me, this is like a little bit of a like, what happens now moment. Like I've never directed anything before. I've only been a cinematographer. So I think like I'm very excited, but it's all very unknown for me.
Yeah, I mean, having done this a lot of times, I think what happens once you finish a film and you release it to the public, through a festival and otherwise, is the movie stops being yours in a way, right? It becomes everyone else's. Everyone else gets to have a say. You stop being able to say what it is or what you want it to be in the edit and in all the different creative aspects. It becomes everyone else's film to say things about. And, those things can be really glowing and nice and kind and like encouraging and inspiring. And sometimes it can be just, mean. And you just have to be ready for that. I think for us, this film has taken a long time and not to get into kind of industry talk, but the distribution landscape in Hollywood and Hollywood itself is kind of going through a bit of a reckoning of sorts. And so I think, and this has not happened to us, but I think looking at the landscape of distribution, just feeling like taking things into our own hands is maybe better ultimately for the film than to continue to wait on finding someone who gets it or finding someone who can give us a fair deal. And so Memory as a company, initially starting out as a production company, has like moved into distributing several of our films. And I think with Carpet Cowboys, we saw the opportunity to world premiere at New Next, which is their first kind of inaugural festival, right? And wanting to support that, wanting to support the community in Baltimore, which, for Memory has been a community we've worked with a number of times on a number of films. And the festival, as for a company, it was the original Maryland Film Festival, which I think inspired New Next. And in the way that festival worked was, kind of very formative for us as a company. So I think it means a lot to us to come back and bring this film to Baltimore. We have a lot of friends and artists and people that we really respect. And I think we're excited to share the film with them there and kind of be amongst other filmmakers and watch their films and like be part of a conversation over a few days, and hopefully use that to kind of continue to propel the film outwards. So, we're going to be premiering in New York the following week at Metrograph. We'll be premiering in Los Angeles in mid-September at Braindead Studios, and locking in other cities from there on out. So, really, this is the beginning of a journey for the film to really get that feedback and engage with people and do the thing, which is, to sit in a dark room with a lot of people and make them watch a thing you made is like why we all do this. So,
Yeah. I was thinking about, I think in production of this, it started teeny in the sense that it was Noah and I stuck in a minivan for years, just talking to each other, having conversations about what we're filming, what's happening in our lives, who we are, what do we think about the United States, what does being an American mean, what's this guy's story? And it's this larger conversation that's both about the nature of filmmaking, about the stories we were telling, and kind of about what feelings we were trying to express. And then over the years, Riel became part of that conversation. Eliza, our co-producer, became part of the conversation. Nico, our editor, it became a bigger conversation, but it's still small. It's still, there's 10 of us that are talking. And so what I'm excited about is I think when it premieres, when an audience gets to sit and see it, it no longer belongs to me, but that conversation we've been having suddenly infuses into an audience. And I'm so excited to hear what people think. If they hate it, I'm excited. I'm so curious how they respond to what our brains have been ruminating on for years. I think that's a really exciting prospect that I didn't know would come of this. Of course, it's kind of the same thing. Of course, that's what happens, but it's a new realization for me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be amazing. This will be so interesting.
Great. New Next. To do the pitch man branding thing. No, that's wonderful. And this has truly been a treat to have this sort of extra texture leading into the film dropping and coming out. It's going to be really, really cool. I am excited. I'm already bought a cowboy hat. It's going to be great.
Yes. Yes.
You're going to see 6'4", 300-pound black cowboy just rolling up.
I am thrilled. Okay, we'll be matching, just so you know.
This is leftover from Barbie. It's fine. So I want to quickly tap into these rapid fire questions. I just think it always adds a little fun to the back end because I'm a goofball, but also I really am invested in films and films in that area in that Station North, arts and entertainment district. So yeah, absolutely. So. And these are just, for everybody, what have you. Short answers, don't overthink them. Favorite film growing up? Doesn't have to still be that film, but just something that from your childhood you think of a movie. It could be documentary, it could be animated, it could be anything. But it's the film oriented that really sticks out. Ninja Turtles sticks out for me. Go.
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was probably still my favorite movie.
I mean, I was only really subject to movies that came on to Channel 11. It was their programming was all I really had with the bunny ears. And so weirdly, I think my favorite film for a long time was the movie Overboard with Goldie Hawn. But I think it was more an issue of exposure, really. I was it was that or Ghostbusters, and I was well, this one is kind of stranger in a weird way.
Yeah, I'm a Ghostbusters guy. I've watched that over and over and over again. I have a recording. I'm dating myself, but I had a Fisher Price recorder, and I recorded myself watching Ghostbusters and saying the lines, and I'd be "Oh, this part's awesome," and then I would say the words. So I think that's probably my favorite as a kid was Ghostbusters.
I like it. It reminds me of me and one of my buddies. We used to recite Jack Napier lines from '89 Batman to each other. Something about the devil in the pale moonlight. This one is a goofy question. You already know what the answer is, I'm quite sure, but I'm still going to ask it because I think it's funny. When you think of carpets in movies, what movie comes to mind?
Whoa, that's a good one.
It's been underrepresented. Times are changing.
Our original title for the film was The Sixth Wall, and the reason was you think about four walls, then maybe a ceiling, and the last thing you think of is the floor. It's so unimportant in our thinking. Nobody considers the ground. It was too esoteric a title. We dropped it, but underrepresented. That's good. I like that, Noah. I immediately think of casino movies. Like I recently rewatched Showgirls, and I don't think you see the casino floor a lot, but just that flashy light environment and the set design in that movie is crazy. And I won't call it a film. I'm calling it a movie. But all Vegas movies, I think of carpets. Or carpets, I think of Vegas.
Casino probably has a lot of good carpets in it. I think of weirdly about like Home Alone or something, because I think he like puts toys in the carpet or like the micro machines and he trips on them. I don't know.
Yeah. You really think about like when a film is living in the close-up, what are we excluding? And I think the answer is carpet.
I was hoping someone was going to say The Shining because that carpet is.
Oh God, yeah, that is the one. That's the one.
Can we have a redo? Let's do a redo.
Sure, just say The Shining.
Of course, it's The Shining.
I immediately think of Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, The Shining.
Thank you. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Okay, I got two more. Is there a place? It could be a theater, it could be your home, it could be a specific room. Is there a place you enjoy watching? A movie, a documentary, a movie, film, however you enjoy visual media. Is there a place that you enjoy watching it the most?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy the sight of people like in New York on the subway trying to watch a movie on their phone with like the wired headphones. And you know how high the audio has to be for them to even absorb what people are saying in that film. And I think just the commitment alone really displays a passion that I feel inspired by.
Where do you like to watch them, Noah?
Oh, there, yeah. I watch all the films I consume. I watch on the subway. There's so little time in my life.
I like over the shoulder on an airplane,
Yeah.
Like they're watching it, I'm watching them watch it,
Really funny.
I'll give a normal answer. There's a beautiful theater in New Orleans called the Britannia, and the acoustics are excellent, and I really like it. There's also a beautiful theater in my hometown called the Lobero, and the acoustics are really nice. Wait, I take it back. I said the wrong theater. There's a theater in my hometown called the Arlington that has incredible acoustics. The Lobero is like second place, but the Arlington Theater is crazy, and I love it for movies.
I enjoy laying on my floor in my studio on the carpet and watching a film. Yeah, that's what I do.
Good, good.
This is sort of the last one, and I have a ridiculous comment, but this is sort of the last one. So if you're watching a film or what have you, I'm very into the consumption habits of people. What do people eat? Like I recently discovered the combination. This is probably going to sound low rent. The combination of peanut M&Ms and like really salty like movie theater popcorn. What is your go-to when you're going to see like something in a theater? Like what is the go-to food or snack or drink that you've got to have for that experience to be kind of complete?
Yeah, I at any moment in which I'm going to see a movie, I have like undoubtedly forgotten to eat dinner, and I'm like on my way there, and I'm sweating because I haven't eaten in like 4 or 5 hours, and I'm like bottoming out, like it's like a insulin drop, and and so like I find myself just like in the theater, like I've gotten like a dry tortilla or something from like a corner store on my way there, and I'm just like trying to smuggle like this like calories into the theater. So it's like there's no joy in it. I'm just trying to like make it.
That's good. That's really fun.
Just trying to stay conscious.
Yeah, I just gotta make it to the end,
I'm a traditionalist. I love just popcorn. Gotta get popcorn. Lots of butter. But I was introduced to something very recently, which is I think Chicago mix.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like cheesy popcorn mixed with caramel popcorn in one bag. And it's, oh my God, like it's wild.
Ooh.
It's absolutely wild. I don't, like, theaters should sell it. I don't know. My friend gave it to me. I wasn't like at a theater, but I was like blown away at how much I ate and how fast I did it.
It's delicious.
I really like I like a high-low. So I like to smuggle in a really special bottle of chilled natural wine. And then I buy a box of Junior Mint, and that combo just really works.
Love it.
Where's the low in that though? Junior Mints are pretty classic.
I guess so. It's the classiest of the movie theater candy. She's a classy gal. Oh,
Thank you. That's great. That's sort of the end of the rapid fire. And I just, want to be able to let you guys know about the new film that I'm working on called Rug Rebels. It's coming out soon. It's going to be great.
Rug Rebels?
Yeah. It has nothing. I'm stupid.
Could have kept going.
Yeah, we're too vulnerable right now. We can't hear about any competition.
I know, you see me shaking.
It's in Savannah. So that's pretty much it for the podcast. I want to thank you all for coming on and spending some time with me. It's been a lot of fun. And I want to invite and encourage you to share like anything in these final moments, social media, website, and sort of those final thoughts as we wrap up here. The floor is yours.
I have a website, noahcollier.online. You can find me on there.
I would say please watch our movie if this is going out before the Baltimore premiere. So that is August 20th at the Charles Theater, 2:30 p.m. Please come join us. I will be in a cowboy hat. And if anyone is in New York City, we'll be at Metrograph the following weekend. And then you can stream it through Metrograph's online services for 2 weeks, starting on August 25th, I think. But please watch your movie and tell your friends about it so that we can find more places to take it.
Beautifully said.
Wait, but Riel, what websites are people supposed to go to? Because I don't really know.
Oh, I mean, yeah, go to memory.is and / Carpet Cowboys, and we update it regularly with all the screenings, and you can check out the trailer and just follow along the journey of the film, and hopefully you can catch it in the theater, and if not, a Blu-ray in the near future, or a digital download of sorts. But we want to try and do as many theaters and live events as possible before we do that. So tell your friends.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Emily Mackenzie, Noah Collier, and Riel Roch-Decter, the team behind Carpet Cowboys. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, community, and go see Carpet Cowboys this weekend.